What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with NIO, Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. And break down why tomorrow is going to be a very important day for NIO and the overall market because we have FOMC coming out. And we also have NIO reporting their deliveries very, very soon. But before I break anything down about all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. This offer ends in just about 12 hours from now, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the market. So, when it comes to the market, we saw a very interesting day. We saw SPY pump a bit today. We came down a bit, then just continued to go up. Same thing with Tesla. We saw Tesla manage to bounce and close above 200. But NIO came down right before its deliveries because of some geopolitical issues involving China, and also because of other factors. NIO is still looking a little weak, but it's not the end of the world because not only does NIO have a gap to fill, but we're approaching some critical support. Now, whether or not NIO continues to fall is going to depend on deliveries. We are approaching it. There could be some fear about the numbers or something like that. October tends to not be the strongest of months for deliveries, but November and December tend to be much stronger. So we're going to be watching this very carefully as this could help improve NIO's price performance. Now, moving forward, I just wanted to remind you all that we have some job openings and PMI data coming out 30 minutes after the market opens. Then after that, we have more manufacturing numbers and some minor pieces of data, but none of this will matter that much compared to like FOMC. So what might happen tomorrow is the market might dip in the morning, then we might just trade sideways in a very boring manner, go back and forth and back and forth. It's going to be very boring. And then we're going to have the rate hike decision coming out at 2 o'clock p.m. The Fed will most likely pause or AKA skip the next rate hike. They're likely not going to be giving us another rate hike during this cycle because that's what the market's expecting. And the last inflationary reports came in aligning with expectations. Then after that, at 2:30 p.m., we have the Fed press conference coming out. We're going to be listening to what Jerome Powell has to say, and what he says is going to shake the whole markets, including NIO. So it's going to be very important that we pay attention to this. It's going to be very important that we, end up looking at this in a lot more detail, and we just continue to look at how this affects NIO. NIO is dropping towards the 3-year low, which is okay because I see this as nothing more than a buying opportunity. I'm willing to buy more shares close to $7. And that's a level I've talked about in the past, NIO hitting $7 flat before getting a really nice bounce. And I think that that is still on the table. When it comes to NIO's future, we're going to be watching their deliveries. It hasn't come out just yet, at least at the time I'm recording this. So we're going to be waiting to see what NIO reports this time around. They are talking about the ET5 and its potential, so that's interesting to hear, but we're just going to be waiting for anything else. Moving forward, NIO gains but lags the market. So NIO has actually made attempts yesterday to try to balance, but today it came back down, approaching its deliveries. There's been some talk about NIO's margins not looking the best and them missing on earnings. But if NIO makes some big announcements, such as them trying to expand their models, try to continue to grow and they get some very strong deliveries, there is still potential for them to get a good fourth quarter. So we're going to be watching that very carefully. For earnings coming out, we have AMD announcing earnings very soon. I'm recording this like right before it came out. So honestly, this doesn't matter like that much for tomorrow, guys. AMD is just very minor. It's going to affect Nvidia and a few other stocks, but we're just going to be waiting. For Wednesday, we have PayPal and Roku. Then for Thursday, we have Apple. As far as NIO goes, we have some buy ratings from Deutsche Bank. Price-price ratio is kind of flat right now. And finally, when you look at the daily seasonality, it still tends to be green about 56% of the time on Wednesdays. They tend to be a better day for NIO, so we'll see if we end up getting some decent numbers. NIO's volume is about 29 million, and there's not much else changing. So the question is, how is NIO going to move? I believe that there could be a little bit more downside still coming. We're developing a bullish divergence on NIO, which is good, but if you look at this trend, right, you could see our ultimate bottom from this sell-off phase that NIO has been in is going to be close to that $7 area. We're very close to where this thing could try to bottom, or at least see some buyers step in. If it drops a little bit below that, we should still see buyers defend it. And I just see this as another very good buying opportunity for the long term. So watch for buyers to step in close to $7, and we're going to be watching to see how it bounces very close to that level. But for now, I just want to call out that NIO is looking bearish on the daily, continuing to sell off. We came down today and we tried to rebound a little bit, but we could still drop a little lower. And on top of this, I'm going to be looking for a drop and bounce very soon. Same thing on the 4 hour. That's going to be very important. But for the whole market, I can't truly predict everything because it's going to depend on this Fed press conference and what Jerome Powell ends up saying. So we'll just be very patient. We'll see what he says. What he says will have a big effect on NIO and the whole market. Like the market, NIO has been on a big sell-off phase, and this has led to an increase in volatility. If NIO continues to sell off, we're going to be watching to see where the buyers step in and how this relates to the market. If the market gets a big bounce thanks to the Fed, this could help NIO start to reverse and start approaching, this gap up here around the $8 area and these higher levels. We have a lot of unfilled gaps above, so I believe that NIO will most likely come up to start filling those gaps. Now on the SPY chart, I just wanted to call out that SPY is looking bullish on the 4 hour, on the 30 minutes, and also on the daily. It looks like it wants to bounce. It's looking quite decent. And if you look at the daily charts, the MACD is looking quite decent as well. So I could see some more potential upside. I think this thing is going to approach 420 soon. But before we get there, we're going to be watching what happens tomorrow because we have Jerome Powell giving another speech. What Jerome Powell and the Fed announced is going to be very important, so we'll be watching for that. But nonetheless, regardless of if we fall or not to fill the gap at 410 to bounce, or if we don't do that, I believe the market is due for a bounce nonetheless. And I think we're going to see upside anyways. I think SPY is going to reach 425 anyways. For Tesla, this thing is trying to bounce right now. If we get some good stuff from the Fed, if the Fed pumps the markets, Tesla, could reach 206, then 210. It is still very possible, but we're going to be watching to see if we hold. If we lose 196, Tesla could start sinking even lower. So just to be safe, we're going to be watching these levels very, very carefully. In terms of Apple, we're looking like we're on a slight uptrend. If you want to turn bullish, you want to see this thing try to get above the 200 EMA on the daily, above this 171.6 area. We're going to be watching this very carefully to see if the buyers could step in and break this and then start pushing this even higher. I also want to call out that when it comes to the market's volatility, we're going to be listening to what the Fed and Jerome Powell have to say. What they say and what they do is going to have a big effect on how this market moves. So just be patient and we'll see how it goes from there. For the QQQ, if we're bullish tomorrow, we want to see this thing try to push up towards 355 plus. It is possible the Fed causes us to drop towards 345, however, because we have an unfilled gap there. But even if we do drop, I think we're eventually going to still rebound. I think the market's in the bottoming process if the bottom hasn't come already. And I still anticipate some upside later on, anyways. For Nvda, it's going to depend on AMD, so we're still waiting for the earnings. We have a slight bullish divergence trying to develop, so the odds do favor this thing bouncing and trying to get back to like 420. But just to be safe, we're going to be waiting to see how things go. So with that said, guys, what do I see for NIO? What do I think is going to happen? I think that the market, and I think NIO might drop a little bit more. We could drop just a tiny bit more depending on our deliveries and such. If deliveries are decent, then we could just bounce immediately. But I'm thinking that it is, from a technical standpoint, we could drop a bit more than bounce. Maybe like deliveries come out a little later. And then if deliveries launch this right back up, we'll see if we could try to fill this gap up to 7.5 to $8. And then after that, it all depends on the Fed. Approaching the FOMC meeting tomorrow, the market is generally going to be very sideways, not going to make a very, very massive move. And then after we get all the information from Jerome Powell and such, we could see a much nicer move. So we're going to be watching this very carefully. We're going to be remaining calm, cool, and collected no matter what. We're going to be watching to see if NIO could get some kind of like bounce later on, thanks to Jerome Powell and this Fed. Anyways, that's it for the today's video. Thank you all so much for listening. I believe that regardless of what happens to NIO, if it drops a little bit more, there's going to be a nice bounce for November. I think November is going to be a green month for NIO. And I believe that the market is going to have a big influence in how NIO moves. I believe that regardless of what happens with the Fed, if the Fed causes an initial sell-off or not, the Fed pause alone could cause the market to pump more. I think the market still has more upside pending. So we're going to be waiting. We're going to be watching all this very carefully. With that said, thank you once again for listening. I'll see you guys very soon. Get ready for the Fed. Get ready for NIO's deliveries. I hope NIO does well. I'll be talking about the numbers tomorrow in a lot more detail. All right, so thank you again and peace out.